because he would not, people just started driving in to our driveway where I lived with my parents. And with a couple of experiences that we had in RBTI when my father was alive. I remember yesterday in the presentation, I said wherever Carey Reams was, there was a retreat. Because he would not, people just started driving in to our driveway where I lived with my parents. And it was a rural area, but it wasn't really rural. It was kind of just outside the Orlando area. And it was a community that was being built up around a beautiful lake. It's all described in my book. I'm not going to go into too much detail there, but people would line up for blocks and blocks and blocks. We'd wake up, there they are. No, and this is how we started helping people. My father first kept them in the home, and then he sold the house because it wasn't sufficient. And our first retreat was in Mount Dora, Tavares area. And from there, we went to Blue Ridge. And we kind of got run out of Blue Ridge. But the people, wherever we were, they kept coming. They would just walk in the door. I'd get a little card, ask them their name, put in the information, take them to Dad, run the test, you know, the whole thing. I burned a pair of pants off of myself once.
We've heard that story from Dr. Jason tells it.
Yep. You want to be careful with that sulfuric acid, and you do not want to be using it unless you've got some baking soda and some baking soda water close by. If you can mess something up, I'm pretty good at it. But I do have a very good guardian angel. I'm still here to testify to that, which proves it. But if anybody came and they were in range C, D, or E, my father would not write a diet for them. Now, if you're in range A, you don't need a diet. You just keep being told, do everything you're doing. You're fine. Just keep going with that flow. But range B, that digestion is starting to slow down a little bit. And so you can write them a diet and you know, have them come back in 6 weeks and see how they're doing. In range C, it's getting mighty serious. You really can't put them on lemon water and see them in 6 weeks, because if you do, they could run into serious trouble. If you're in range C and you're doing lemon water, like we did in the retreats, you can start throwing up. You can start detoxing so fast it scares the daylights out of you. And we know of people that happened to, and they went to the hospital, and the hospital said, well, what have you been doing? And they told them, and they said, oh, don't go to those people. They're quacks. In the Blue Ridge, in the Tavares Mount Dora area, we had a little lake, and the guests and I were walking around this lake, and Dad was with us, and I said, Dad, we should get a couple of ducks for the lake. And he looked at me, he said, I think we have enough quacks around here. Everybody laughed. He had a very good sense of humor. One of the most important things to remember is that laughter is one of the best medicines there is. And if you are in the pits and you can find something to laugh at, it's going to start the healing process right there. Anyway, we wound up in Mexico. We won't go in between here and there. You can read that in the book if you've got the book. We wound up in Mexico. We were at Plaza Santa Maria, where I met Miguel Hernandez, and the owner of the property said, Miguel is the administrator. If you want anything at all, ask for Miguel. I took one look at Miguel and I asked for Miguel. His picture's in the book. And we were married 9 beautiful years, and he passed away in 1990 with a little help from what he thought was his friends. They weren't. Took me 10 years to get over that one, but life happens, and God has a plan. And if you lose anybody that you love, like your dog, or your child, or your husband, your mother, your father, all you have to remember is that they are in God's hands, that their life comes from God, and their life goes back to God. And whatever happens beyond that point, God is in control. So we were at Plaza Santa Maria, and things just didn't kind of pan out there. The Kelly program was there, and Steve McQueen, the movie star, I think most of you have heard of him, came, and he went on the Kelly program there, and he was right across the street from us. And we got to say hello and all that. And of course, there were guards around. And Steve started getting better on the Kelly program. When he came in, he had a tumor in his stomach, and he looked like he was pregnant. And you could see that tumor going down. He started feeling so good that he decided that he wanted to just have the rest of it taken out and get it done with. And the doctor in charge, Dr. Rodrigo Rodriguez, who was the same doctor who was in charge of our program, and we worked with him, and was also a good friend of my husband, Miguel's, he said, don't do it. Do not go and get surgery. You cannot be operated at this stage of what's happening in your life. You can't do it. Well, he went anyway, and he got the operation in another city in Mexico, and he died on the operating table. Anytime you operate on a cancer and you do not have the immune system to fight what happens, whatever happens, when that happens, everything goes haywire. And that's what happened. And Dr. Rodriguez came knocking on our door, and he was furious. He was just furious. And he told us what had happened. But that kind of got a lot of bad publicity for Plaza Santa Maria. And the owner wasn't able to hold on to it because the attendance just fell down. And it was a nice, beautiful property. So we transferred over to what we called the Seidel Clinic. Miguel was friends with people who owned the place, and we got into Seidel Clinic. And it was at Seidel Clinic that I had this experience. I didn't know as much about RBTI back then as I do now. I did know what to do in a retreat situation. I knew when to ask my father when I didn't know what to do, and he was usually available. But I was pretty much the administration there as far as receiving people, making reservations, making sure everybody had what they need. My brother was there, and also my sister Laverne. So all three of us were there running this program, and we had a group of about 8 to 10 people coming in. And there I was at the door, and they were coming in. We were introducing ourselves, shaking hands. Hi, how are you? I'm Betty Reams. It's so nice to meet you. I'm so-and-so. And here comes this little old lady, you know, like your grandma with the bun in her hair and the brown dress down to here, what I call clodhoppers, just a little bit of a very thick heel and a cane. And she comes walking in. Hi, I'm so happy to be here. I said, I'm so happy to see you. My name is Betty Reams. What's your name? I'm Marie Adams. I'm just so happy to be here. I'm from Pennsylvania. And your father sent me here. Put her on the program. I really don't know what happened while she was on the program because my sister and my brother were handling her. And I don't remember how long she stayed, but it wasn't a particularly long time before she was ready to go home. The average stay was 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. We were there for about a year and a half. And then that sort of kind of started going down because the insurance companies were getting kind of iffy about paying. They had been paying up until that point. And and things were starting to slide. So Miguel and I went back up into the States, and my dad said, maybe you should come out here to Pennsylvania and help us. So we traveled to Pennsylvania. We got to Pennsylvania, and Dad was in, I guess you could call it a 3-story house if you included the basement, because it was a walk-in basement, and that's where his office and the laboratory was. And people could drive around to the side of the house and just come in through the door. And the secretary quit when I came in, so I started taking over all the secretarial responsibilities, answering the mail, running the tests, helping my dad, just like I always had. And one day I saw out of the little square glass in the window this woman jogging up the sidewalk. She came in, she was wearing jeans, nice tall, maybe 55, 60 years old. And she said, Betty, it's so great to see you. Sorry, I don't remember who you are. I'm Marie Adams.
Wow. Wow.
I'm not joking. I'm not even exaggerating. My father told me 1,000 times not to exaggerate. And I never learned the lesson. But I'm not exaggerating now. That's what RBTI can do for you. That's what RBTI can do for your clients. If they have the energy, if they have the spirit, if they're willing to live the lifestyle, if they're willing to fly, if they want to live, there is so much involved in what RBTI can do. There was another woman, and I have had some, and this is a shorter one. I have had some questions about what can you do for Parkinson's disease. Well, number one, what can you do for cancer? What can you do for Parkinson's disease? What can you do for arthritis? What can you do? Some people are naming conditions I never heard of. I don't know what they are. I have to go look them up. It doesn't matter what the disease is, because all we're doing is looking at the numbers and bringing them back towards perfect so God's natural healing can take place. It doesn't care if it's cancer. It doesn't care what it is. The worse it is, the more serious it is, the number of drugs that are being taken that will prohibit the body from responding. And we can't say, oh no, you've got to get off that drug, because then we're breaking the law. And we do try very hard not to. Doesn't matter. What can you do for Parkinson's? And I said, it doesn't matter what it is. But yes, I did have one Parkinson's in my personal retreat. And this lady came in, and I am not, again, I'm not exaggerating. She had it really bad. And this is how she would sit.
Wow.
And she would talk, but she could. And it was sad. It was hard. And her husband sat there right beside her, holding her so she wouldn't fall off the chair. And I'm wondering to myself, can my father really handle this? And am I going to handle this in my retreat? And of course, her husband said, yes, I'll take care of her. All you have to do is the testing and tell us what to do and prepare the foods. And so I did. Well, I do not remember because this was in the early 80s. I don't remember exactly how long she was there, but it wasn't too long because I was raided and shut down, arrested and hauled off to jail. And a lot of stuff out of my house was cleared out, which I never saw again. And that story's in the book. It was a couple of years later, and I was in Pennsylvania with my father, and they drove in. And it was this couple. And she walked calmly, with a little twitch here and there. She sat down. She said, I've been following the program. I'm doing much better.
Wow.
And it's going to get even better. It took a while. She wasn't a spring chicken. And we do have that X factor, which says the older you get, the longer it's going to take for you to heal, because we older folks don't heal quite as fast as younger people do. It's amazing to see the healing. I have one more story, and then we'll do whatever you guys want to do. Paul Braddock. Remember I talked about Paul Braddock?
Mm-hmm.
In my, Paul Braddock brought this man over. I don't remember what his name was, but he brought him to the retreat in Pennsylvania. And the man walks like this. I'm not kidding, no exaggeration. He couldn't move his mouth, but he could talk through his teeth like this. And he was probably in his very early 50s. And so I ran the test. And my father put him in the retreat. He had a very rare form of arthritis that was turning him to stone. He, in his early 50s, and he was a carpenter. And he couldn't do anything because he was just frozen solid in most places. He would eat, and he would kind of have to move his hand very slowly, and his mouth would meet the spoon halfway. It was a very difficult life that was going to end soon if something wasn't done to alleviate the problem. My dad was getting ready to go on a trip. And I said, Dad, how am I going to handle this? He says, I'll call in every day. Don't worry about it. And he says, and this is where I'm going to be. If you need me, call me, and I'll call you quick as I can if I'm not there. So I said, fine. So the next day, Dad left the same day. The next day, I put him on the fast, the regular fast that we did at the retreats. For most people, he qualified for it. 4 ounces of lemon water every hour on the hour, 4 ounces of distilled water every hour on the half hour. I ran his test at 10 o'clock, and it was okay. And I ran his test at 2 o'clock, and those ureas, both of them turned black instantly. And I went, oh my God, he's going to die. I got a hold of my dad. And my dad started laughing. I said, I don't see anything funny about this. And he says, honey, just because the numbers shoot up like that doesn't mean they're going to die instantly. He says, it would take a while, but we've got to bring that down. Take him off the lemon water and put him on watermelon juice. He said, cut the watermelon, and for that portion of the watermelon that you cut, also juice. He said you can take the watermelon and blend it in the blender with the seeds, because back in those days watermelons had seeds. And he said take the rind and put it through the juicer. Juice the rind, and then take that and give him 4 ounces of that every hour on the hour, and then give him the distilled water on the half hour. And so we did that, and the numbers came down. And again, I do not remember how long he was in the retreat, but when he left, he could turn his head slightly sideways, and he could talk a little more clearly. It wasn't like this anymore. And he could very slowly get the spoon up to his mouth so you could see there was progress. A year later, he walked in and shook our hands and thanked us. He was back at work.
Wow.
One more story about my dad. It's not about a patient, it's about me. In that same house, around the basement, which I said was a walk-in basement, we had windows that kind of went halfway up. I think you've seen those kind before. They kind of shine down into the basement, but half of them are underground. So there's a window well there. And out back, we had a big wood pile, and there were some feral cats back there.
Mm-hmm.
And they had kittens.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a mouse in my apartment, in my garage apartment. I had a chihuahua, but the chihuahua couldn't catch the mouse. Tried to. And so I got to get a cat. So my sister was there, Laverne was there, and she came, she said, there's a kitten in the window well. And so we went, and there was this cutest little fuzzy black and white kitten. Oh my God, he was gorgeous. And I reached down and I snatched him up, and he bit me. He bit my finger to the bone. I let him go real fast. And his mama came and got him, and they went back to the wood pile. We poured hydrogen peroxide on it, and we disinfected it and bandaged it up. It was hurting hideously, and I was afraid of getting something horrible. My dad called, and I told him what happened. And I said, Daddy, what should I do? And he said, I'll tell you what to do, honey. Just wait 3 days. If you don't die, you're going to be just fine. What else can I tell you?
We had a question yesterday that came up about when you're looking at an equation at the numbers, if the client is on medication, I know we're not going to tell them to get off of it, but is the medication influencing the numbers?
It often is, and if you'll find out what the medication is, you can look it up online, and it will tell you what its side effects are and what it does.
Okay.
That's what I do. And more often times than not, it does affect the ability. In certain cases, you can tell them to not stop their medications, but to go back and check with their doctors after what they've been doing to see what their doctors say about them still needing it. Preston, you were going to say something.
That I can understand that the medication will affect the numbers. And even that you can kind of go online and look and see where you might, what it might be doing. But you still work with the numbers in front of you, right? I mean, you have to work with the numbers in front of you.
With the numbers in front of you,
yes. So even if you know that, you know, it's the medication that's pushing the sugars down or whatever, you still have to, you know, push the sugars up or whatever.
Yeah. There, not so very long ago, there was a man who had Parkinson's who had been on RBTI before, and I don't know him, and I don't know where he had gotten his RBTI help before. He was in the New Jersey area, a couple of hours away from one of my students, so I sent him to her, and she's pretty good, but he wasn't making that much improvement, and she couldn't test him that often because they couldn't make the trip that often, 3 hours every time. And he wouldn't drink water during the day when he was traveling because he didn't want to have to stop and go to the bathroom. Listen, I want to tell you something. If you're on this program and you want to get better, you've got to drink your water. And that means if you have to carry a bottle with you and find a bush. We went, I don't remember where we were traveling, but we stopped at one rest stop, and they had his and her bushes. I'm not kidding. I don't even remember what state. It was somewhere out west.
His and her bushes.
Yeah, they had his and her bushes.
That's awesome. That's a fun one to walk people through in the numbers. Just exactly what happens for just not drinking water.
Yeah.
I've had that conversation with people and just show them, okay, you don't drink water, your salts go up, your sugars go up. When sugars go up, pHs go down. You know what I'm saying? Your ureas go. And then just start saying, now this is what happens inside your body when salts go up. This is what happens inside your body when sugars go down. This is what happens when you go up. This is what happens when your urine goes acid, and just kind of show them. And you can give them an hour-long description of all the horrible things that are going on in their body, and then go, what did we start this off with? Oh yeah, you didn't drink your water. And it's a really neat conversation to have.
Some people will say, you know, they'll send me the numbers, and they'll say, this person says that they're drinking water. And so I tell them, I'll just put them on 4 ounces, and I'll start, depending upon what the numbers are and the age and what they're doing, I'll either put them on 4 ounces every hour or every half hour, and of course depending on their weight too. but no more than 4 ounces, because my father said that it's rather difficult for people for ionization to handle more than 4 ounces at a time. And that's why we do it that way. Every half hour, at least 4 ounces every half hour. So this one gal, she's out in Washington State, Vancouver. She had this client, and the numbers were always like 5, 5.0. The salts would be 16 to 20 C. The ureas would be 12 over 11. And so I told her, I said, well, put her on water 4 ounces every half hour, because she had the weight to handle it, and it didn't look, there wasn't so the sugar salt ratio wasn't that bad usually. So she came back 3 to 4 weeks later, and the numbers were pretty much the same, maybe down a hair. Not a rabbit, just a hair. I said, she's not doing what you said. She swears she's drinking water. I said, how much and how often? She came back, because the lady was there. She came back and she said, well, she said she drank 2 quarts this morning. I said, exactly. I said, that did a water washout, and then whatever she did came right back up, because that won't cleanse the body. She's got to do what she's told. She's got to follow the rules, and she's got to follow all the rules, or they won't work.
And I have to emphasize with my clients, distilled water, distilled water, distilled water. Oh, I'm drinking purified water. No, distilled water. And then we have to fight the battle of the thinking that has been perpetrated for so long that distilled water is bad for us.
I've got a wonderful
that's
document.
The stuff they use in my dad's
Right.
CPAP machine.
But
You sure that's good?
I'll have people say, oh, I'm drinking my however many ounces of water. I am drinking this much water. What kind? What kind of water are you drinking? And it's not distilled water.
Whatever water they're drinking. Now, I'm going to go on record saying this, and it may not be very popular, but it's better than no water at all.
It is.
Yes.
But it's not going to do the
But
job.
that's the problem
Yeah,
is
it's
when
not gonna
they
do the
say,
job.
but I'm dehydrated. I just went to, to whatever checkup, and they're saying, I'm dehydrated. I'm like, then you need to check the kind of water you're drinking.
Now, there's a water out called, I believe, Kangen water.
Yeah, the Kangen water.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
Yeah.
People are on alkaline water. Chances are they're alkaline.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Now, if you're really acid, you want to drink a little alkaline water, I don't think it's going to hurt you too much. But in the long run, it's not going to do the job of cleansing the body the way we need to cleanse it. When you get a client that knows more about what they want to do than what you tell them to do, let them try what they want to do. And when they come back and it hasn't worked, emphasize that you need to do what I'm suggesting, see if it works. Some people do not want to change. And I'm going to give you a little bit of advice. Don't compromise, because if everything goes wrong, if your client ends up in the hospital or the graveyard, guess who's going to get blamed?
You are more than likely. Or at least you
Follow the
along
rules.
with a bunch
We're
of
going to
other
be
people.
hearing from Jason, God willing, and the creek don't rise. We're going to be
You better
hearing.
show up.
Well, he sent his Zoom connections, and
Yeah.
I'm having a lot of problem where I'm keeping online because the internet keeps shutting off, and I paid for enhanced internet. So it is what it is.
Yeah,
You just do the best you can. But he sent me the links last night, so we've got that to hook in. But Jason has very little patience. And I'm not talking about PATIENTS. He has lots of them. But he has very little PATIENCE when people argue with him. If you ever talk to Jason Bailey, you're going to get excellent advice. You're going to get advice that you never heard of before. You're going to think this man's crazy. Oh, you ate pork 4 days ago, or else you
For
ate,
lunch.
Yeah, for lunch.
Yeah, not 4 days, but 4 days ago for lunch.
For lunch, and either that or you ate from a pan that pork had been cooked in. What's wrong with this guy?
Yeah.
The first time he did that on another RBTI website, and the moderator, the owner of the website, threw him off. And the other admin and I said, I don't think we should have thrown him off. We need to hear him out. And so the question was asked, well, did Carey Reams ever say that? No. But we were always in an environment where it couldn't happen. We ate at home. Well, when we traveled, we ate, but we weren't testing ourselves when we were traveling. We didn't need to. We're testing everybody else. And the question just never came up. And then when I went and spent 3 months with Jason and taught side by side with him and saw him working with people, and every single solitary time somebody came in and he said that to them, they would think back and say, oh yeah, I ate it such and such. Well, they cooked pork there. The pan might have been clean, but the pan carries the energy. What is RBTI about, folks? Energy. What is life all about? Energy. We are nothing but energetic forms come to physical material. We are ionized physical forms, I guess you might say. The table carries energy. Your pans carry energy. Your dishes carry energy. Your attitude carries energy. Your dog carries energy. And you can get that energy. It can spread throughout the room. If I walked up and was real nasty to someone, that might just affect them so bad they get nasty to everybody else. Energy travels in ways we don't even understand. That's why we want to love one another no matter what, because that is the energy that's traveling. And sometimes I forget that. We all do. We're all human. And we're learning and we're growing and we're learning to love and hold one another up. But some people just don't want to cooperate. Let them go. God will send you the clients you need to sustain you. And God will call you into his work and show you the way. Any other questions? Thank you for your comments on water. Oh, there's one thing I can add. This very pretty woman came into the retreat, and my father said, we're putting her in room blah, blah, blah. She's going to stay. And he said, she's going to go on the fast, but she's not going to be drinking the same amount. I want you to cut everything in half. She's going to be drinking 20 ounces of lemon water over the day and 20 ounces of distilled water. Well, this was a tall woman. She probably weighed anywhere between 140 and 160, and she was slender about like me, but built better. I'm a little flabby in places, and she was all there. And I said, why? And he says, because she's had a colostomy, and she can't handle any more water. So be sure that you know, when you get a client, what surgeries have they had? What do they have? What do they not have? What medications are they taking? That's very important information. And if they've had a colostomy, you only want to do half of the liquids you ordinarily would do. as people say things, I remember stuff. So that's,
Have you ever worked with anyone who's had a liver transplant?
no, I haven't. Now, somebody in RBTI may have, but I haven't, no. But that is a good question.
We have relationships that hurt one of their sons. He's in his early 20s, and he's in Texas, and they're very holistic minded. But he has had to have a liver transplant, and he is still not doing well. He did well for a while, and now he's not doing well. And I sent her a message yesterday to find out if they had ever run his numbers or had anybody met with an RBTI person. So I'm waiting to hear back. I haven't heard from her. But
Where are they located?
I want to say Dallas. It could be Houston. I get confused on those.
Because Jason Bailey's in San Antonio.
Really? Okay.
All right, listen, let me tell you something. Jason Bailey comes across strong. But I have never in my life seen anybody call it more accurately. People don't understand. Sometimes they don't know how to receive it, and that's fine. Go where you're comfortable. But when I went, he was in Cedar Rapids when I went there, and he was testing people there every 2 weeks. And we did a live class, and I did an RBTI living class, kind of on the level that we did here yesterday, but not quite. And he and I taught side by side, and we flowed together. But the people that got up and gave the testimonies, one man got up and said he had heard about this man that was testing people, and he thought it was kind of strange, but he went because he couldn't drink water. It made him throw up every time he did. Guess who drinks water now? Jason did whatever you have to do to help this guy drink water. Another lady, she's on his RBTI website. She is now an admin. She wanted to have a child, and she couldn't get pregnant. She had tried for 3 or 4 years, and she had had miscarriage after miscarriage after miscarriage. She's got a beautiful baby. She did what Jason said. You've got to be careful. If your client is pregnant, you don't want that sugar to fall below 1.5, and you want to try to keep it up at 2. It's a tricky thing, but try to protect the pregnant ladies. Another thing that you do not want to give a pregnant woman is, even if you think she has parasites, don't give her K-Men. It will kill babies in guinea pigs. We don't know if it will kill babies in humans because we didn't test the humans to find out. We know better. My father worked with guinea pigs to see what happened, and it's all biological life. Jason Bailey has been giving me advice for my baby here. When he didn't recognize us and he was going berserk, Jason said, oh, just put a little coconut oil in his food. It snapped him right out of it for a short time, and then he started it again, and then I started taking him off of his prescription. We're going back and forth with him. We don't know what's going to happen, but we're trying. We're trying. We keep trying. And that's all you can do. But you have to have cooperation from your client. My client was not cooperating this morning, or I would have been here sooner. He's cooperating now. He's a very good boy. Yes, he is. So, any other questions? I'm trying to think of something that...
Betty, we had questions earlier because I had mentioned how bad sea salt was, and we had questions concerning that. One person specifically, Daniel, on the Zoom was saying that he uses sea salt. I told him I'd love to see a full set of numbers for him, but he says he uses sea salt and he can barely get his salts to come up, and he has bad blood pressure and things like that. But I know your father said, I believe your father said that sea salt should be used very rarely and only by people who are working extremely hard. And Jason Bailey has always said no sea salt for anyone ever, pretty much. I've never known a time for him to say that anyone can use it. So
Here's
what
what's
do you
happening
know
with sea
about
salt.
sea
Here's
salt?
what you can be eating: sea salt and have low salt. It's possible, but what's happening there is the salts. Let me see. We talked about this in our class.
Are they being held in the tissues, and that's why they're not coming
They
out?
could be being held in the tissues, or they could. Sea salt has minerals in it.
Mhm.
Morton salt, and I'm just calling that because it's a very common salt, is refined. All the minerals are taken out. It's nothing but salt. Okay, what does salt do? What do we say it does?
Well, it dries you.
No, but what's the purpose of it in your body?
And they conduct.
It conducts
Mhm.
electricity. If the messages aren't coming to and from the brain, if you have a potassium deficiency, if things aren't showing up like they should, or they are going into the tissue, there could be various reasons why that salt isn't showing.
Yeah, that's why I said I didn't have a full set of numbers, but like you said, the potassium's down, brain issue, being held by, you know.
So what we would want to do in a case like that is go strictly by the rules and probably watch everything fly up. But this person would not want to do that on his or her own, simply because with those kind of problems, they need help. They need assistance. There's a lady who is involved in this Atlanta session. She's Zooming in. I'm not going to name names. She's a good tester. She knows what she's doing. She's smart. She wants to help everybody. She's got a lot of love in her heart. She's willing to give up everything she has. And a man came to her and he said, I'm a life coach and I have cancer. Tell me what to do. And she wanted to put him on a fast. He wanted to go on a fast. And I said, no. He can't do that and do all the work himself. Well, he says he can. I said he can't. I don't understand the point, this is coming at me, of RBTI if you can't do what you're supposed to do. I said, this is why we had retreats, because the people who have these kinds of problems don't have the energy they need to heal. And we have to put their bodies in the state where they can build up the reserve energy, and you can't build up your energy while you're using it to do what you have to do for
To make your carrot juice, to make your running water.
it's a lot of work, guys. It's a lot of work. The shopping, the work, the cleaning,
Yeah.
He says, I can do this. I know what I'm talking about. She put him on fast. He died a week later. He died a week later. This was only a few months ago. And she was really upset. And I said, he insisted on doing it, she said. This is why we need a retreat. If somebody has someone taking care of them at home and you're going there every day and testing them, that's fine. But RBTI, I'm going to tell you, if you put it to someone and sock it to them, it's going to kick the disease out. And if they're doing the work and they're not resting, or they're not doing every single thing they're told, and they're not monitoring their numbers twice a day, 2 hours after breakfast, 2 hours after lunch, in a retreat situation. Because 2 hours after breakfast tells you what they need for the rest of the day, and 2 hours after lunch tells you what they're not getting, or what they need, or what they don't need anymore. And they're resting. They are doing nothing but eating, sleeping, drinking, praying. In the retreats, they weren't allowed television. They weren't even allowed to read books, magazines. They were allowed to bring their Bible. My father's rules. And guess what happened? They started getting to know one another and made friends for life with the rest of the people that were there. It was a joyous occasion. That part's written in the book. If you've got the book, you will see the advantageous results that can come from a retreat environment. It gives people an opportunity to step down out of the lives that they've lived that have taken them to the place that they are now experiencing disease in. You get to step out and learn a new lifestyle. It is exhibited before the person every single solitary day while they're resting. And yes, we meet together, we have meetings together. In the retreats, when my father was there, he would come and play the piano rather badly. But nobody cared. He would sing. He couldn't even carry a tune. Anybody that's heard his deep bass voice. I had a boyfriend. Okay, I had a boyfriend. He was about this high. Excuse bugs here. We were going on a date. Larry comes to pick me up. My father is 6 feet tall, big man, booming voice. Larry would wear boots with heels. He also was the leader of a band that went around and played, this tough stuff. Dad opened the door. Hello, son. Larry goes. Have her back by 10. Yes, sir. We got in the car and he said, you didn't tell me your father was a big bad polar bear. He didn't ask me out again.
Good job done.
Way to lead them out. I have a question.
Yes.
If I may. So I'm not as in deep in RBTI, so please bear
That's
with
fine.
me. All right, Dr. Bernard Jensen taught that sodium is the youth element.
It's the youth element.
Youth element, and you have to have sodium
You do.
to have joints that are mobile and not stiff and things like that. So of course, with iridology, we are like no table salt. So I have been saying Celtic salt, but you're telling me no salt.
I'm telling you no Celtic salt because it's sea salt and it has minerals in it and it will not allow the body to carry the electricity that it needs to carry successfully.
So because we're going to have to get it from our food then, like celery.
Well, you can have table salt.
Okay.
Morton salt is
So
fine.
you can actually have, and so instead of saying no table salt, I'm supposed to say no Celtic salt?
No sea salt. We say no sea salt.
Which would include
Which
Celtic
include-
salt
that's what I'm
and
like.
Himalayan. Yeah.
And also Himalayan red salt comes from a dry, ancient dry
Yeah, I know where
seabed.
it comes from. It's from Utah.
Yeah.
It's Utah. Yeah. So that's my thing is I was like, well, because it was bound to minerals.
But the minerals that are in sea salt are not dissolvable. And you are not going to get a benefit from anything that the liver can't dissolve.
So you're telling me I have to change what I'm saying and go back to telling people have table salt.
I feel your pain because I went through this with my wife because I'm the one who told her to use the pink Himalayan and then I came back and told her not and she just, and we
But
had, it was a goal.
I don't have a problem because it's like when we have both Himalayan and Celtic salts in my cupboards and that's what we use. And we know what happens when we over salt, especially if we use the Himalayan, the right side of the body, the nasal passages get stuffy. So we go take potassium because there's a sodium potassium imbalance that has just happened. We don't feel it with Celtic, so I'm going, oh, Celtic must be better. But now you're telling me I need to go review my
numbers. Look at your numbers
Yeah,
and
you
see
can
what's
review them.
happening. Your sugar salt ratio should be what?
5, 4, 5.
Yeah, I don't know that either. So.
Okay. This textbook that you didn't see the presentation.
I was not here yesterday.
But it is available. It is recorded. Please look at it.
Okay.
There is a book at the end of it that is a textbook that doctors Jim and Elisa Sharps from IIOM, International Institute of Original Medicine, where I am literally teaching courses with Philip Rankin, who is the man who was on last night out of Australia. Philip traveled the U.S. and talked to every single RBTI person out there. You name it, if that person was teaching, he talked to him, made friends with him. Philip could sell an Eskimo an ice cube. He is that friendly. He is that kind, but he is also very sincere. He's going to make sure that that's a hot Eskimo who needs the ice cube. Philip cares about people. He also talked, if these recordings are available, it would be wonderful for you to listen to Philip, the stories that he told, especially how he was able to work in the hospitals with the doctors. His 19-year-old son had a brain injury, was dying, unconscious. They said his brain was gone, and he could see the urine bag hanging on the bed and knew why things were going wrong. And he started talking to the doctors. He wouldn't let them tell him he was wrong. And he found ways to convince them to cooperate. And that boy today is back just fine. RBTI can do a lot. It also can help you stay alive when you're in the hospital if the doctors will cooperate with you.
That's the hardest part.
But we have written a textbook with Dr. Jim and Elisa Sharps, and that textbook lists all of these things that we're talking about on a very easy to understand basis. And it is just about, we are trying very hard right now to put it into a PDF format and sell it that way. And as soon as we get it, Jason Amelin called me and he said, we want to ramp up what we're teaching in RBTI. Can you help us? And I said, no, I can't. I'm too busy. But we're about to put out a textbook. So please feel free when that textbook becomes available to use it with your students.
Yeah.
We don't mind.
I'm sure we will.
So that will ramp up completely
So
the class.
may I say a little bit about what happens in the numbers with the sea salt?
Sure.
From what I understand.
Absolutely.
So what typically happens is you'll get, because she talked about what is the salt sugar ratio, what should it be? And 4 or 5, I usually see it more at a 5 until they get more healed. Betty might have a different opinion on that, but
No, that's true.
okay. Then when they get more healed, it might be around a 4, but otherwise 4 is typically not so good. But when they get on sea salt, that salt sugar ratio will usually go out to a 10, a 9 or 10. So what's happening is one or two things. If you're trying to keep your sugars up, your salts are going to be too high. And if you're drinking your water to bring your sugars down, your salts down, then to keep that 10 ratio, your sugars are going to drop. And so that ratio there, because the sea salt keeps it at about a 10, what you're going to have is, to get the salts down, you're going to have low sugars, and to get the sugars up, you're going to have higher salts. And that's what I see. That's the thing I see in the numbers. Now, what's happening in the body and all that, people can probably get into that a lot more, but because of that high ratio, you're just going to have them either going to be hypoglycemic or too salty, one or the other with the sea salt.
Plus salt is toxic. It's toxins. It's not soluble things, chemicals inside of our body. And the more salt, hard, not soluble things, chemicals inside of our body, the worse the situation is. It is building up toxins.
Right.
That's why we need H-chlor, stable salt, you're saying, just to have this electricity done. But except for this, we don't need salt at all.
So I would
salt in the form that is already not soluble in the body, and the body has to have additional energy to get rid of it. That's why.
So I think one of the things that I've heard, and Jason is the one I've listened to most about this, is that, like you're talking about sodium, and sodium is different than
Right.
sodium chloride. I mean, obviously, I'm not telling you anything
No,
you
no,
don't
no,
know.
yeah,
But
yeah.
sodium chloride, well, sea salt has, it's not just sodium chloride. Sea salt is at least 7 different salts, typically many more different types of salts. So wasn't it your father that said if the one salt doesn't get you,
The other 6
the
will.
other 6 will?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so that was his thing. So if you're looking for sodium, but you're taking a sea salt, you're getting sodium, you're getting sodium bound to chloride, but you're also getting potassium bound to chloride. You're getting, God knows what you're getting. You're getting a lot, yeah, you're getting a lot of stuff that are just all kinds of different kinds of salts. And that's what's causing the real issue. It's just not.
I'm just sitting here imagining talking to my husband going, you know, all those recipes.
That was me, honey, that was me just a couple months ago.
And because my husband grills for us, and I'm like, yay, you do that, I'll take care of the veggies. Okay, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm getting ready to have to go tell him he's got to read out all of his recipes.
So I'll tell you, I can tell you a story about what the very same thing that happened with my wife. Now, my wife, she loves me, but she's not so much into this as I am, right? And so here she is, always picking at those dried lips. So if anybody's RBTI, you're going to be, I mean, you should, or any practitioner, you're like, what's going on there, okay? That tells me right away, salts are high, right? Picking at the lips, because that's one of the first things, your salt is high, you're getting dehydrated. Next thing, oh, I'm always got these salt palpitations, or I got these heart palpitations, right? So my wife's like, I'm concerned about my heart, palpitations. Just, those were the 2 major things with her.
I mean,
I guess I'm just talking to you.
Do you have a question?
we used one about Frontier.
I can't hear you.
Doesn't have the MSG. Sorry, we got lots of conversations going on.
In addition to what people have been saying about the salts and stuff, Badeau said, and can I just read it?
Please,
What he
please.
said? The elements of the mineral kingdom cannot be assimilated directly by the animal cell. They must go through a process of linking with amino acids first. Found in the plant kingdom is the link for getting mineral into human life more efficiently. Plants can take in minerals directly, especially when it has colloidal phosphate available to it. All mineral, with the exception of nitrogen, needs colloidal phosphate to link up. I mean, and I could go on with that, but the problem with trying to get it out of your salt is that your body has to process it to get it into a usable form,
Oh, I
which is
understand.
when, like, if you
My body
drink-
doesn't usually do the same.
I mean, okay, so yeah, so I'm like, I understand and what you're sharing, it's just the, I'm going, okay.
Complete paradigm shift.
It's really not, that's what's so crazy, is because I'm teaching the class on vitamins and minerals, y'all took it.
Yeah, I
And
know.
amino acids, and I'm going, here's this source, here's this source, here's that source, and yet I'm still going salt, because, I'm using the Himalayan or the Celtic, because that's one of those, this is good salt, it's got your minerals, and that is absorbable. This is absorbable. Somebody's telling me that. I don't
It
know
is
where I
one
heard
of
it.
the illusions.
Right.
One of the illusions.
And I'm having to do the same thing with my clients, saying, hey, listen, and I had to do that with one of my point that I started with my story, is that my wife is having all these issues, and I know her salts are high. And I'm like, honey, you have to stop using the Himalayan salt. You have to. And I was getting you're the one who told me to use it.
See, that's
And
what
I'm like, and I'm going, I know, but I was wrong. I'm wrong.
Somewhere way back in the Wayback Machine, I was taught this, and I held to it, even though I understand exactly what you read. Because I'm sitting there going, okay, the foods you need to eat that are high in sodium, not salt,
Yeah, we teach that, right?
are celery and strawberries and this, and that,
But it's not enough for now. They eat only because our vegetables or fruits are depleted.
Right.
Depleted.
I totally
So
agree with that
they
too.
have to have. Sometimes people have low sugars and they definitely need to have this electricity going on.
Right.
So they have to have. But the white So table salt, you call it, it's bad.
I know.
Because it's has like,
Right.
Well, here's what we did when I was a kid. We had Morton's iodized salt. We used that. And then when Laurie's seasoned salt came out, my father switched. And he said that the additives in Laurie's seasoned salt, the herbs, were very good for you. To this day, I use Laurie's seasoned salt.
So I use the Frontier, the Simply Organic brand, because a lot of times we can't find the one with no MSG, the Laurie's.
Yes, yeah, Laurie's does not have MSG anymore. At one point it did, but all of the ones that I have bought for the past years does not. There was one time that it did.
So, because if I have MSG, it's like, no.
No, I won't do MSG either. It makes me sick.
Yeah, so I'm like, we went to the Simply Organic. That seems to work for me, but I'd have to look and see.
Go by the numbers.
Yeah.
That is the best thing to do.
You know, another really important ratio that's not RBTI, but something else is the calcium phosphorus ratio. And it's interesting because, well, like I just read, to put a mineral, you would use up a lot of phosphorus or the phosphate in your body to get it usable. But pork also has a really bad calcium to phosphorus ratio. It's like 1 to 30 something. And beef is like 1 to 18. And so I always wondered if that's one of the reasons that pork is just so bad for your body, because it totally throws off your calcium phosphorus ratio.
And what's the ratio again for the pork?
It's like 136 or.
Okay.
It's not on the correct frequency for the human body, which is probably part of it. Let me ask you a question, folks. How many kinds of salt exist in the world?
Don't have a number.
48 at least have been identified by my father.
I don't know.
48.
Wow.
Insulin is a salt.
Yes.
I did not.
A lot of medications are salts. What's that they take for bipolar? If they're really bipolar, they're
Lithium.
lithium is a salt.
Yeah.
I have a friend that's on 600 milligrams twice a day. It's full of salt.
Well, if it's bound to a halogen, that makes it a salt, right?
I don't know. I'm not a chemist. This is where I wish Dr. Misak was here.
Right.
Yeah. And maybe not just fluoride, but I think you're right. Probably
Anything that's in the halogen chemical,
Molecular.
anything that's in the halogen
Yes.
on the periodic table would make, and it's bound to
salt.
something else, becomes a salt. That's from what I understand.
Well, my father identified at least 48 different kinds of salts, and they can come from various amount of things.
Yeah.
And they are what build up the salts, but you have to take that into consideration. Okay, somebody asked earlier today, if somebody's on a medication, is that affecting the numbers? Go check it out.
I would think it would have to affect
It
the
would.
numbers.
Now, your ratio should be 1 to 4 to 1 to 5. How do you figure that? You take the salt number and you divide it by the sugar number. If you divide, the perfect number for carbohydrates and sugars is 1.5, and the perfect numbers for salts are 6 to 7 C, so we would say 6.5 C. So if you take 6.5 C and you divide it by 1.5, you're going to get
4.2.
4.3. So it should be one to, I'm not saying this right, it's written in the book correctly. That is
About a 1 to 4 ratio. Is
a
what
1 to 4 to 1 to
4.3.
5, because you can round that off a bit, that's fine.
Gotcha.
Anywhere between that 1 to 4 and 1 to 5 is safe. And that is also included in the textbook that I'm talking about. And as soon as we have that, we'll be letting you
Yeah, I'll be
folks know
very
it's
interested
available.
in that.
Oh, we are just finishing that. It's taken us almost 3 years to get it to the state where it is. We've run it through all the classes that we taught. Galena was in one of those classes, and she was very instrumental in helping us. We had a lot of problems. I was doing all the typing for it. At one point, like 2 days before the class started, my computer crashed. And when I finally got it back up, the formatting was completely gone. And some of it was corrupted. Poor students really had a bum time. But we did get through it, didn't we, Kalina? We had a lot of help in the proofreaders that day. But anyway, the most important thing that you have to remember in all of this discussion we have had is to go by the numbers. You want to be in that 1:4 to 1:5 ratio. You need to understand what the ratio between the sugars and the salts are, no matter what the numbers are. You can have high numbers across the board and still have a 1:4 to 1:5 ratio, because sugars and salts should travel together, simply because the carbohydrates is what gives you the energy, but the energy isn't going to do you any good if the brain can't conduct the information to the body and distribute the energy. That's what the conductivity does. It distributes the energy, and the brain needs the potassium to help it do it, because the brain is the engine that drives it. So that is pretty much a general description of it.
You were looking for a service?
Yes.
Oh, no, not today, honey, because we're using it for our conference.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
That's okay. You're welcome.
That's all right. I'll leave you to your meeting.
All right.
Have a good day.
You too.
You know, a chemical definition of a salt is when you have a positive and a negative element come together, because the compound must have overall a 0 electrical charge to be a salt, and so, which would not conduct electricity very well, would it?
Well, you see,
Like
that-
redox would be affected.
that would be that's a little bit of a different way of looking at things, because that makes it sound like salts don't have electricity, but the fact of the matter is all salts are electrolytes. They're anything that carry electricity.
Not always, not always.
Well,
Not
the
always,
salts-
because chemically, like a chemical molecule,
Yeah.
it has no electricity at all. It doesn't carry electricity.
All right, but
We are
when we're
talking-
measuring
we are
salts in
talking-
RBTI,
We
we're
are
Yeah.
talking about different kind of different meaning. So we also have to take in mind that what meaning we are included. That salt we are talking about, like here, it's a different type. It's hydrochloric is higher. You just said it.
it's electrolyte.
Electrolyte.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's why I'm saying this is a different way of looking at it. That's why I'm saying when you're looking at.
H-chlor is a different from like magnet chlor. It's
Yeah.
I
it's
see
two
what you're
different
saying.
ones.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
so in
Melita.
RBTI, when you're looking
Melita.
at salt, you're looking at
H-chlor.
electrolytes that
Jason
are
Bailey has
conducting
sent
electricity.
several messages
We
asking about
also
the differences
call
in
that
times, and I don't know where to get them.
So
I'll let Sherry bring that.
this is
I have it on my
why
phone.
Dr. Reams
okay.
is often looked at as being weird about what he was teaching, because his chemistry was different, and he would prove that that chemists at that time couldn't measure energy right, because their concepts of how molecules and stuff were built and how many electrons and things were in it was not correct. And so that's why I think sometimes when you pull up definitions, chemical definitions, it doesn't match what we have in RBTI, because Dr. Reams would teach that they didn't know how to measure energy. They would teach that all, the electrons and protons all are even in all molecules, and he said that's impossible, otherwise everything would be hydrogen. And so,
But in
And he has a
biochemistry,
totally
anything
different
that ends
approach.
in
He has-
is a salt.
And he has a different approach to the whole meaning of physics, chemistry, and biology and everything.
But we're still, I'm still going back to the very, very, very simple experiment I would have with my physical science students of conducting electricity. We would measure electricity in pure distilled water and get no electrical charge. as soon as you put salt in it, because it does have,
It's chlor, but if you put.
but it then conducts electricity. It may not conduct it as well as some other things, but it still conducts.
Betty, do you want to tell the story about your dad, or do you remember the story about your dad helping that ionization, that plating company?
I don't know that story.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, it's still salt, it still conducted
Because
electricity.
it has part of it has.
Right, because it's not
Yeah,
zeroed
yeah,
out,
yeah,
there's
yeah,
something.
yeah.
Like lithium carbonate is a salt because the 8 at the end.
Because it, right,
And actually lithium orotate is a
yes,
salt
that's
too.
right.
Although lithium orotate is better absorbed by the body, so you use a lot
What?
less of that than you would with lithium carbonate.
Yeah,
So Dr. Reams, there's a story, since we're telling stories, and I thought that he would know it, but she didn't know the story. This company, this gentleman has purchased this company to do plating, so, gold plating or whatever else. And he had bought all the finest of equipment, and he had built this brand new, facilities and everything, and they had everything up and running to plate, and they could not get it to work. It would not plate. They could not ionize the gold to the metal. And so the guy is like making calls and going all around trying to figure out how to do it, and nobody could tell him how to do, or what was wrong. So somebody got a hold of Dr. Reams and put him in contact with the guy. And now you got to understand, he's got hundreds of thousands of dollars of investment in it, and it's not working. So Dr. Reams says, I'll come out there and I'll get it working for you, but I want to see, I want to check of X amount of money, and I want it before I come out there because I don't want to be scammed. And so the guy's like, well, I'll tell you what, I'll give you half now and half later, whatever. So Dr. Reams goes out there and he looks at the process, and he's like, I'll get it running for you here in about 5 minutes. And the guy's like, what? So Dr. Reams goes out to his car, comes back in with a white substance and pours it into the vat where, all the ionization is supposed to take place. He goes, all right, hit the switches, let's go. And it all started working. And the guy's like, oh my gosh, what did you do? What is that? Give me, I want to order, how much ever of that is, and that's, and Dr. Reams goes, you can go right down to the store and buy it for, whatever, 79 cents for a pound or whatever. It was salt. It was just table salt. And he poured it in, and it was all about the fact that when you ionize, when you're plating, you have to have conductivity. And so they had the water, they had the gold, they had the electricity, they had the metal and everything, but they weren't able to ionize the gold plate the gold to the metal because there was no conductivity to carry the ions.
And I think that this is my own personal opinion, I haven't been able to get anyone to verify. But I think when you have the numbers perfect is when you have perfect redox going on in your body.
I would say yes, because Beto, I don't know, how do he say his name? I hear everybody say it.
It's French.
I just say
It's French. It's French. It's a different pronunciation.
Anyway, he talked a lot about redox in his book, and I think you're right, because the whole point was that that's all out of whack when your numbers are off, and that's what's happening.
Well, if you study like the VC or some of the other nutrition people, cancer happens whether or not you're too alkaline or too cancer. I mean, there's different types of pain associated with each one, but it's all redox issues. And then I noticed, and one reason I bought my book, because there's certain times, well, y'all know what's nutrition, like glutathione, where you can have the reduced form or the like not, or vitamin C, all that.
Right.
They all have to be
Different forms.
Thank you so much. They all have to be regenerated because once they've given up their electron, they've now either been reduced or oxidized.
I just went to cafeteria because our box of water is gone. If you need some water, I got you some.
Is it distilled water?
I'm sorry, I couldn't ask that.
You
That's
add
all.
Betty, any kind of water.
But there is a distilled water, you can just put it out.
Oh, reduction. Yes, it's when the molecules exchange, like, antioxidants, right? And what they're doing is they're
Yeah.
counteracting free radicals.
Yeah.
Oxygen, right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, no, what they're doing is they're actually exchanging
Always searching for
electrons,
distilled water.
okay? And so that's called oxidation
I have a.
or reduction.
Reduction is, reduction.
They say that.
It actually, I always get confused, but when it's a reduction agent, I think it takes
Reducing the antibodies from regular enzymes that has extra ions to help.
They did, okay. Reduction, that's what always confuses me, because you think reduction, it's taking and it's
Miss
reducing.
Betty,
But reduction is actually giving,
do you want to do the
and it's
testing?
reducing the oxygen. I know,
We have to
I
test
tried
it.
to.
Do you want to do testing?
So
If anybody
reduction
does,
gives
that's
an
fine. If they
electron
already know how to
reducing
test and
the
they're not
That was
having any
great
problems.
teeth. But I had pizza.
It's 80/20.
I was like, I don't know what my numbers are gonna show.
Anybody's interested to do the testing?
Yeah, I would like to. It's been a while since I thought somebody came in.
That's why
Okay,
Dr.
we
Reams
can do
is
the
going.
testing.
It was
Sorry, I forgot
later.
very much.
You know,
I brought mine. Your battery is running low.
Let's talk about
Isn't that connected?
oxidation and all this, what's happening chemically.
Oh, yeah.
Dr. Reams is looking at it and goes, that's not
2
chemical,
hours.
that's electrical. That's an electron, that's an exchange of electrons, that's a movement of electrons, and a movement of electrons is electricity.
Okay, it went away. Hopefully it won't do what it did yesterday.
I know.
Is that all right for me to drink that water?
Yes, you can drink that water. It's from cafeteria.
Yeah, I don't know how.
Yeah, I can bring that little table
Oh, you
here,
know what? I'll
maybe.
see if I, cause I'm like, I don't know what Ron's gonna do. He's gonna have an absolute like.
Somebody give us sample, everyone's to get a sample.
Send him to Tennessee to a.
We don't eat pork. That's not a
good,
problem,
that's
but,
good.
but he
Yeah, it is in the
does,
South.
I mean, he
Oh, my
does
husband loves pork.
his seasonings.
Mine too. Trying to put it in mine too.
No, pork's nasty.
And
I'm
mine
sorry.
has a smoker and
Should we leave it
sugar
here
on
and then you
put
can
it all
turn
in
the
there.
Zoom if you want to test
We
it?
got.
Oh,
you want us on the
griddle, the smoker,
No, this is fine.
the green egg, the
Anybody-
peppers, the dip, he got it all.
Anybody
I
has
eat
some
well.
He's in the group. so he's probably watching
Because
the
he comes
same.
home, would you like steak tonight, or would you like this, or would you like that? And I'm like, just, big cut.
Yeah, ladies, would you like to have a test done by Betty?
Yes.
Yes, water, we can use this. one.
Yes.
Stay in the.
I wanna go on record that
Beth
yesterday
is
was my
making
20% day.
We're gonna need a little more because you gotta slide the whole tray in. There, that's good, that's good. Yeah, get some baking soda in. Okay, well, anytime you're gonna test, and you're gonna test all 7 numbers, including the ureas, you have to be very careful of the sulfuric acid. And when you see that pH scale, sulfuric acid is at 0. Nothing can be more acid on this earth than sulfuric acid, and it will burn a hole in the table, in a cloth, in your skin.
Yeah.
You name it, it'll burn a hole in it.
Where do you get the chemicals? Where do you get?
Pike Agri Labs.
There we go. Yeah, I
You
know.
can find them online.
Okay, we
Okay.
can get some.
And so you just put some baking soda. You don't have to measure it. Just put some baking soda and water. Make sure it's
I just had some water,
stirred up.
drink of water. How long?
Betty, can I, is it okay if I can record it?
Sure, I don't care.
I'm gonna
It's
put
probably
it-
been.
If they come and take me away, you might have to come bail me out.
Oh, I will. I will go with you.
Okay.
No, that's for me, for my personal use. I don't do any
I
post.
can go ahead and go to the bathroom.
She's gonna bring some sample. And
Does
this
anybody
is-
have some paper towels?
I have,
I have
outside,
it in my
no,
car.
outside there is some of more of those.
Just need to dry my hands here.
You want me to do the water and alcohol in these 2 little ones, or you want a big one?
It doesn't matter because we're not gonna do a lot of testing.
Yeah, we're
Let's
gonna
we'll
do
do
one.
one.
Yeah. Okay, that's your water. And she's waiting for us.
This is the conductivity right here.
And this is it.
And electricity.
Awesome.
Oh, well, see, I should have.
I know, as soon as you left.
It's okay.
Thank you. I just need one.
Anybody has a marker? I usually have one here.
Okay. Now, let me tell you a little story before I start here. Some of you may have heard it.
I think you have it.
Yeah. In Blue Ridge,
You're gonna
at the
see
Blue
this
Ridge Health
chart
Retreat,
here.
we had a capacity at one time of 80 people. And we had the staff to take care of them. Now, I said you have to test 2 times a day in a retreat environment. So that meant I was testing 80 people 2 times a day. Now, you have a 2-hour window from the time the test is
Collected.
Thank you. That's a good word. Collected. Because otherwise bacteria can set in and alter some of the results. Now, can you imagine a big square board with holes in it that, and we had glass urine bottles that we used, professional ones. We use party cups now. But, yeah, from the party store. But can you imagine 80 jars of urine that need to be run by
In 2 hours
within 2 hours?
or less.
Now, we had these here, and we had these little. There's no tubes here because you don't really need that anymore. But there's tubes here, here, and here, and here. And we used to have them to the point where you could line 6 up at a time. This one only has 5, but at that time you could do 6. So I would take the universal extracting solution and squeeze 6 drops in. And then my father taught me to work from left to right, top to bottom. The people's names and number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You were assigned a number, and of course your name went on it too. And it was written in order. It was all organized. But there was no way I was going to be able to run 80 tests in 2 hours. So I did the nitrate nitrogen test first, and I would do 6 at a time. I had the sulfuric. I had the universal extracting solution in. I would take the drops from left to right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I would take 3 pipettes in one hand, 3 pipettes in the other, and I'd titrate. Now, and I did that. I did them 6 at a time. I don't think I could do that today, guys, but I did. And I found that the shortest way to run a test is to run your nitrate first. Of course, when you run your nitrate, you run your ammonia nitrogen. And you put your colors in your nitrate. You put your sulfuric acid. You drop, is it 4 drops? 4 drops, yeah. 4 drops in, and then you're watching that. You're going to wait at least 5 minutes for that. It may take a little longer because the development of those tests depends upon temperature, altitude, air pressure. There's a lot of natural factors that can affect that. And if you do a reading of, say, oh, okay, that's an 8, and then you look back there and it's a 10 now, change your number. Because when it starts to deteriorate, it's going to start turning gray. We don't have a gray reading for nitrate nitrogen. So you'll know that it's done, but it's usually 5 minutes. Sometimes, like I said, your altitude here in Atlanta may be a little higher than it is in Orlando or Daytona Beach. So I noticed that when we moved from the Central Florida area to Blue Ridge, that it took a little longer for the test to develop. particularly the nitrate nitrogen. You want to read your ammonia nitrogen within 30 to 60 seconds. Now, people will send me pictures online and say, what are these readings? And the nitrate nitrogen is readable, but the ammonia nitrogen has deteriorated because it will start also to turn gray or clotted, or it will look weird. And if you ever get an aqua blue, I mean a really aqua color for your nitrate nitrogen, you want to try to do that again. There might be some contamination involved. Okay, so I've heard people say to titrate for 1 minute. That is incorrect information. You want to titrate 120 times because people titrate at different speeds. So if somebody's titrating slowly for a minute or quickly for a minute, you're going to have a different level of titration. So you want to count from 1 to 120. Now, when you're doing that counting, if you get sidetracked and you're still titrating, it's all right to over-titrate. Don't under-titrate. So I hope that helps. Now, here's one thing I do. If I'm just testing one person, and this is strictly up to you, I will take my universal extracting solution and I'll drop it into the little well, and I'll very carefully, because it can scoot out if you get too excited. But I'll do that. But for today's purpose, I'll do it in here. We've got this little.
Oh, that's why I like those little communion cups.
Yeah.
That's what I use.
Whatever you use is fine. Okay, and we're just going to, and I'm going to shock a couple of people today and disagree with some of the teachers. It doesn't mean that the teachers are wrong. It means that there are many roads to Rome, and they're all going to get you there. So we're going to drop 6 drops. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oops! 1 drop too many went in. Do we have another tube?
Yes.
I didn't do that on purpose. I was just going to say that. You know, they say manifestation happens. All right. I'm just going to get it out of here. This is a clean bottle. I won't waste it. If you drop too many drops in, get another one. Don't do it wrong. All right. We're going to do it a little more carefully. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5. I'm just going to get it out of here because it's not coming out. 6. Make sure it's the right number of drops. If you get, oops, too much urine, don't go ahead and do it anyway. I don't care how many times you have to do it. Do it right. Sometimes the droppers don't do what you want them to do. It isn't your fault. It's just life. Life happens. Now, here's your specimen. Here's a dropper. Which one has the alcohol?
The first one.
This one?
Yes.
Okay. Left to right, top to bottom. We're going to use the alcohol and water first when we use it. So that's it right there. All right. So this is a clean pipette. I'm going to stir the urine up just to make sure. Nothing is just settled in one place. I don't know. This is the way I do it. Nobody ever. Kind of get the excess off on the edge. One drop. Then you still have some in there. It didn't come out. take it and squeeze it out on your paper. Make sure it's clear. And then you start counting. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. If you start talking, it's fine. 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 31, 32, 33.
See, I always have all, I didn't say, I use about 5 or 6 droppers per person, but I'm not taking payments. I use, I use one for the extraction, one for the urine, and one to 6th grade. What? Well, that's a lot, I don't do it a little.
89, 90, 91, 92.
But if I put it in, if I put it in a meter, yeah, then I need one to slide it in a meter, or I just put it.
17, 18, 19, 120. You want to make sure there's not a bunch of bubbles when you get ready to drop your urine.
I realize.
Titrated urine.
Statement. I realize when they have lots of high sugar, it's getting bubbly and bubbly.
The bubbly part is the ammonia nitrogen. Too much ammonia nitrogen. But it could have something to do with high sugars. I don't know, but the ammonia nitrogen is. So now, remember I said left to right, top to bottom. Now, if you're just doing one, it doesn't matter. Or you're just doing two, but keep track of it. Add order, consistency to the way you work. So I'm going to start at the left top. I'm going to drop 1 drop of this titrated solution in. I'm holding it at an angle, 1 drop. And then I'm going to go immediately below it, and I'm going to drop the 2nd drop. And then I'm going to squeeze this back into the tube. Oops. And onto the table. And I'm going to squeeze it out. And you can put that right back into your urine. It's not going to hurt anything. You want to squeeze this in and out a couple of times, just so you've got pure urine in there. And then you're going to take your sulfuric acid, and you're going to do that first. Now, some people, that doesn't want to come out, so I'm not going to force it. Oh, that's fine. Just leave it.
It's a little brown.
Okay, that's fine. I know how to read it if it's a little brown. If it's a little brown, it means it's starting to turn. It's starting to go bad, but you're not looking for brown, you're looking for blue. 1, 2, 3, 4, and I would get some new as soon as possible. Anytime your dropper gets contaminated in any way, shape, or form, or if it turns sideways and it gets up into the rubber bulb, it will turn brown. And we're going to let that develop, and we're going to get the ammonia nitrogen, and we're going to put 4 drops in. 1, 2, 3, 4. And when you're doing 80 tests, you just go ahead and do that again some more, and keep an eye on that too. And I always swirl my plates. It helps it to form the shape. Shape is not so important as the amount and the shade of the color. I don't care what anybody tells you. Now, there are some people that will say drop it north, south, east, west, or north, south, west, east. That's to make your shape. You're going to get some weird shapes depending upon temperature, altitude, air pressure, you name it. I have seen some weird shapes that people didn't know how to read. We never were taught by our father to do that. However, I did ask some, I never went to one of his, I might have gone to a part of one of his class, but I don't know how they taught. And I said, did he teach north, south, east, west? And some people said yes, some people said no. I don't know if it was to do the shape or not, but he didn't train us this way. And I checked with both my brother and sister just in case my memory had gone bad. Now there's my brother, I think he just turned 78 or 79. I can't remember, but his memory is sharp as an elephant. He said no. So we just kind of wait around, and while we're waiting, maybe we'll do the sugar. Yeah, let's keep an eye on that. I don't usually even time it for 5 minutes, because by the time you've done your whole test, and you're keeping an eye on it, you'll know what that reading was. And
So I think she said she can always tell, she don't even need the timer because she can just look and see that it's developed.
okay, this one is very hard. I don't recommend this for people who have, I think that's about a 1.8, but I'm not sure.
I think you can change the.
Yes, I think you're right, because it's not quite at 2.
Okay, I thought it was a 1.8. It looks like a 1.8, but these are this is the 0 to 30 with the lines. Yeah. So now it is better to use a Kleenex, a soft Kleenex. With your refractometer, you won't scratch the glass. I've got one.
Those are not soft Kleenex that are out in the lobby. They're rough.
Oh, okay. Just use a soft Kleenex. All you have to do is kind of slide it in here, and that's fine. Don't worry about it.
And I have
you don't have to go disinfect this before you do the next test. You want to disinfect it when you're all done testing, but if you have to stop and disinfect it every time you do a different person, there's no sense in doing that. Now, also, there are some people who want to wear gloves, and if you're more comfortable doing that, I never did. Some states may require it. I don't know. I do not know. I grew up in my daddy's house, and I just did what he did. This, okay, I don't know if you can see me, and I don't want to pick it up too much, but I'm swirling this plate. And this blue reading, I do not know if it's finished yet, but right now
it's only been about 4.
Okay, right now it's at about between a 3 and a 4. We'll wait and let it develop a little bit more. This right here is a 6. Mm-hmm. Now I don't need my color cards.
Oh yeah.
I have to.
But this is clearly a 6. Do you see this signature here? That's my signature. My sister and I created this card because the cards that were coming out from Lamont were so bad that nobody could tell what the color or what it should be. And so Jason Ameling came to me and he said, please help us with a color chart. So my sister, who used to in the beginning colored them with crayons, colored one, and I said, oh, we can't use that because the crayons just aren't. Can't do that. She says, yeah, I know, it doesn't look that good. So I said, I know PowerPoint. We're going to do this on PowerPoint. I did this on PowerPoint, and she helped me to make sure that I was getting it right. And there's one thing that you want to remember. Okay, this is going to be a 4. I do not, it may be a 5. Let's wait just another minute or so. But I could tell better. I would say it's going to be a 4. I just don't think there's enough blue to be a 5 because of the brown in there. It's kind of, it's hard.
Yeah, that looks like a 4.
It does look like a 4. I think we're going to call that a 4 over 6. It would need a little bit more orange in there to be a 7.
Okay.
Now, this is where you get a little license for freedom. Depending upon how you see, and how you feel and how you test, remember one thing, consistency is key. If you feel that the reading, you see orange in there and you feel that it's a 7 and you call it a 7, that's fine, because you're consistently going to be seeing that way and doing it that way. And it's not with this test going to matter that much. You don't want to stress over this. Now, okay, let's say that Beth has just run this test and she's not sure what the numbers are. So she takes a picture on her phone and she sends it to me and she says, what do you think these numbers are? Well, first of all, her phone has color settings.
Yes.
And second of all, my phone has color. I don't look at it on the phone because the phone's too small. I look at it on the computer. She sent it in Messenger. My computer has color settings. So that's going to interfere just a little bit, but you can still get a good idea because we have line 1, line 2, and line 3. This is the light blue reading line. This is the medium blue reading, light medium blue to darker medium blue, and this is the dark blue reading. Okay? The first thing you're going to ask when you're calling a number is it light, medium, or dark? The second thing so we defined first line. We said there wasn't enough blue for 5, so we called it a 4. On the yellow, we looked at the yellow. Well, there's too much yellow. It's darker than this, and it's lighter than that. So it could be this or that, but it seems like more that. So we're going to call it 6. Do you see what I'm doing here? It doesn't have to be exact, but be consistent in the way that you make your determination. On your ammonia, and I teach this in the class just like this, don't I? On the ammonia nitrogen, you're going to have your light yellow, your darker yellow to orange. If there is one speck of brown in there, make sure it's not contaminated. You can tell the difference between a speck and a splotch. It'll probably be a splotch. Whatever you want to call it, make sure it's not contaminated. If there's any brown, it's usually a smooth, however it forms. As you see it here as an example, it's going to, I don't care how light this is. I don't care if it's this light or that light or that light. If there's any brown in it, it's going to be a 9.
But I usually have splotches or drops of brown.
Then it's coming out of your ammonia nitrogen. There may be, it might be.
It might be.
The chemical.
Yeah, it might be. If it's splotchy, if it's not inside there.
Not inside. When I do the.
No, occasionally on the ammonia one, it's almost like some of the grains of whatever the grains of whatever they're using to make the chemical. Sometimes one of those grains can come out.
Okay.
And it will cause a discoloration.
Okay.
And so you kind of, and it
you
does
might
look
want
a little,
to try
it looks a little different because like you said, it's not, it looks more like looks like a speck or something than a smooth, like turning of brown.
Might want to try to just test it again.
Yeah.
Make that test one.
I often have it, not as smooth, never smooth, just a little specks, a little drops of brownish. I don't know, is it considered to be getting 8 or it's just my.
I've never seen little specks. I've seen one little speck, and then I've done it again just to make sure my plate wasn't contaminated.
I regularly, because I just don't trust myself to do it right all the time, I always do 2 drops of both. So, because you have 6 drops.
That's a good idea.
I do 2 and 2. I'm testing one person. I do 2 and 2, and then I put my blue and I put my yellow. I'll call them blue and yellow because they're quicker. And then I see both, and that way, now I trust the yellow one a lot more now. So, and it takes a lot less. So I only do it once. But if I'm not sure about it, it's easy to do it twice because it only takes 30 to 60 seconds. So, but I have a second drop prepared for it.
Okay. All right. That's a good idea. That is not a bad idea at all. Okay, so we've got our readings for our ureas. We said they were 4/6. Now, if you're just doing the testing while that's developing, you can do the sugars. We said the sugars were 1.8.
I'm recording.
Oh, okay. All right. And let's look at I'm not doing them in order, folks.
Okay.
Let's look at the albumin or the cellular debris, whatever you want to call it. Now, I can clearly see some particles in here, and I would call this not exactly clear, but slightly cloudy. Just slightly.
Yeah, I can see it from
slightly cloudy. It isn't really cloudy, but it's slightly cloudy, and you see some particles in there. So we're going to call it a 4M plus.
Okay. Not what they call it, a 4M. No.
Now, we took Dr. Badeau's picture from his book on the urine, the cellular debris, the pictures and his definitions. You're allowed to use up to 400 words without permission. And there's not 400 words on that page. It didn't say anything about pictures. So we put that picture in our textbook. I hope nobody gets too mad. I'm sure Dr. Badeau doesn't mind right now, wherever he is. And I'm sure he's up there talking with my dad. I liked him a lot. He was super cool. Anyway. So, 4M
plus.
Okay. That's 4M plus.
Yeah,
can I look at it, Betty? Because I would have probably called that a 4M, and I want, but I don't know.
Just slightly cloudy. You see, it's just slightly.
Yeah, no, it is cloudy.
It is slightly cloudy now, but I can clearly see my finger through it.
Yeah. Definitely.
I mean, you can even see the lines in my finger where
that's
where
one
the
of those where I would have been. Which one?
Where the whatever joint is. Yeah.
You can definitely see the debris.
Yes, but you can definitely see the debris. Now, I will say this. This could be a perfectly clear, not cloudy, and if I saw that many particles, I would just call it a 4M. But if I saw too many more particles in there, I'd call it a 4M plus. Okay. But that would be the maximum amount. Usually when you have this many particles, it's going to be slightly cloudy. Now, why is it cloudy? Anybody tell me?
Lots of salts?
Maybe not. I don't know. Okay. It's cloudy because you've got particles in there that are so fine. There's lots more in there. That's why it's cloudy. Now, nobody can, with the naked eye, see less than a 4M. So if this was perfectly clear, and we would need a little flashlight, hold it up to the light and always stir it first, hold it up to the light, shine it. If it's still perfectly clear and you can't see anything, is it a 3M or a 2M or an 0.4M? What is it?
No, it's a less than 4M.
We call it less than. Just less than. We don't know because we can't count it.
So we
make a less than sign. And that's telling you. And that will tell people who really know how to read those numbers something.
Okay.
If you have a 6.0 and 23 salt and 12/11 ureas, and you have a less than 4M, what have you got?
Disease.
What have you got? What's causing that?
Something's wrong with them kidneys.
You got a problem with the kidneys.
Yeah.
Kidneys aren't working.
Yeah.
I know. I've got some problems with my kidneys. I make sure that I take what I need, what I can, and I'm working on it. But I got a parasite when the sewer backup came, and there was nothing that would get rid of it. And one of the doctors that did the muscle testing, and he had a whole series of things that he put me through. He knew RBTI too. He said the only thing that's going to get rid of this is Hulda Clark's
Yeah.
And he had me order that,
Mhm.
and this was just about 6 months ago. I ordered it, and the print was so fine I couldn't read all the instructions, so I just took how much it said, and I overdid the wormwood. I was peeing pure blood.
Ooh.
I had to go to the emergency clinic, and I had to get an antibiotic because I didn't know what else to do.
Mhm.
Once I got off of that, I replaced the bacteria in my colon, and I went and I got some natural stuff. I cannot, where I am, find watermelon seed tea. I wish I could.
I have not found watermelon seed tea. That's
But there is a product that it's called Bladex.
Uh-huh.
That and there was the guy there is a what do you call herbalist. He said, get this, it'll help you, and it did. It helped a lot, but I'm not finished yet. But that's what happened.
Have you tried juniper?
No, do you think that'll help?
That's usually what we go to topically over the kidneys
Okay.
in
Juniper
an
tea is
essential oil.
recommended by Dr. Ellen for helping with
Okay.
kidneys too.
See, there's a lot of information that we can all share that's going to help everybody. This is why we're building bridges. Okay.
Peter, can you explain 4M will be what you have to see when it is 4M?
Any
What you
particles.
see, any particles at all, and it's clear.
Okay.
But as you can see, this is, I would call it slightly cloudy.
Yes.
Now, it can be cloudier than this, and you can still see the shadow of your finger through here. That's a 4M++. It can be so cloudy
I've had it where
that you can't
Buttermilk.
see anything
yeah.
through it.
Yeah.
I mean, like they say, orange juice-like appearance is how it's been explained. I've seen that. I mean, it's been like,
That's a very sick person,
yes.
too.
And I was like, oh God, I'm scared.
Wait a minute. I did that when I was pregnant one time. I had to give a urine sample.
Oh, wow.
It was so thick. And all the nurse did was say, "Oh, can you go get another urine sample?" And it was not. It was weird because I'm like, it was only 30 or 40 minutes later.
I don't know, maybe the pregnancy had something to do.
Yeah,
I was only pregnant one time, and when I was pregnant, I didn't really know how to do this. I had my daughter when I was 20, and I did not learn how to do I knew how to clean the testing equipment, but it was usually on the agriculture, and people had not started pouring in for the human side yet. And I didn't know what I was doing.
It would be interesting to know more because I think back now that I'm learning RBTI, I think back to that and I go, wonder what in the world was going on.
Now, there is another thing that I'm going to tell you, and that is color has nothing to do with the reading. Now, it may have something to do with whatever's going on in the person, but it doesn't have anything to do with the reading. So you're not concerned about the color. If it's thick, if it's orange, if it's brown, if it's yellow, make a note about that on the side, just to, if you're sending the numbers, just to let the person know. But it'll be a 4M+++. Now, Michael Olsta, who teaches this course, I believe he goes to a 4M++++. We never did that. I do it the way we did it. Like I said, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of another. But what we're trying to do is to create a community who is all doing the same thing, so that we can understand one another and not get out there and say, well, I'm doing it right and everybody else is doing it
I
wrong.
think once you get 3 pluses, if you have any more, it doesn't tell you much anything
It's not going to
else.
tell you much anyway, because
I mean, 'cause
3
at that point-
pluses tells you plenty.
That's a lot of pluses.
So all we have to do now is the pH. Now, when I do pH, I like to use the reagents.
We haven't done conductivity either, have we?
No, we haven't done
Okay.
conductivity yet. Do you want to do that first?
No, I don't care. I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss it.
So when I use the reagents,
Yeah, I don't do it this way either, but that's.
The first one is green.
this one,
Yes.
okay. From Thymol Blue is the, if you're going, and the book that I've been telling you guys about, it has information for reagents and the meter. And I highly recommend that you always have some small bottles of reagents, because if your meter is sometimes you just want to double check it just to make sure. I like to use the reagents because I'm not colorblind and because I did it so much. But I have used the L'Aqua Twin C22 and I do like it. I have compared it with my reagents and it reads pretty well as long as it's calibrated properly. So sometimes just for the fun of it, I'll put my drop in first. It doesn't really matter. If 2 drops go in, it's not a big deal. Not like when we were doing the ureas, okay? So I'm going to put the drop in first to make sure that you don't have to do this. This is just what I do. To make sure that the tray is clean. Oh, that looks pretty good. And did somebody give a saliva specimen for this? Yes, here it is. Yes. All right. I remember the first time my father told me to do a test. I was just finding out that he did this. He says, here, spit. And I said, I don't want to spit. And he said, spit. I said, Daddy, I don't want to spit. You taught me not to spit at people. And he said, spit. Yes, sir. Okay. And then we're going to take 1 drop of urine. Okay, anytime you do this, just stir it up a little bit. If you drop if you drop 1 drop or 2 drops, it doesn't matter. You can always add another drop of reagent. Okay.
Those are the colors.
That's bromthymol blue. And that color is not on this chart. Mm-hmm. It's not blue, it's yellow. So we are going to go to chlorophenol red and we're going to do it again. We're going to drop a
Thank you. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Sorry for interruption. We're back on.
Oh, I probably am tired. It's been a
My
very
computer is
stressful
touching if I say
several
it.
months.
But we know what to do.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Now let's take this meter. This is calibrated?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And we're going to, now I'm going to tell you something about this, and this is the C22, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. I want to tell you something about this meter. The sensor is very delicate. If you cough on it too hard,
It's very delicate.
it may break. It's a very sensitive sensor. Now, I'm not going to tell you not to spit too hard. I mean, we have people spitting directly into these things, and that's fine. But when you clean it, you don't want to apply pressure. And so we'll talk about that when we get there. You want to handle this with kid gloves. If your sensor breaks, you'll know it. Your readings will be wrong. You can look in there and you can see the fine little crack with a magnifying glass. And this does come apart, and you can buy the sensor, the part with the sensor, and it costs about half the amount of the entire thing. You don't want to break it too often. So we're going to put a couple of drops into the middle here until it kind of fills up. That was 4 drops that went in. We're going to close it. And it's, I don't think it'll show too good here, but it's calculating. And when the reading comes up, there will be a little smiley face. And here it comes, and it's 6.72. 6.72. Now, most of you will be working beside a sink. And when you do that, you get your reading, you can turn it off, open it, take your wash bottle, rinse it out in the sink, and, well, I don't want to, well, I guess it won't hurt putting it in there, will it? We'll put it in our
Basin.
And this is where you take a little Kleenex and just dab gently. I'm not pressing. You can stick the little corner in. Don't put alcohol in it. Just rinse it out with distilled water and shut it.
Now, Betty, this 6.72, does that need to be, when you're using a meter, does it need to be calculated?
That's
Or is that the C number?
6.72 millisiemens. That is measured in millisiemens, and you have to convert it to C.
Okay.
And you convert it to C by multiplying the 6.72 by 1.43. Please do not ask me why. I have no idea. That's the conversion factor from millisiemens, which is a measurement, and I looked it up, and it's explained in the textbook really nicely.
Yes.
But it is not in my brain at the moment. 1.43 is the conversion factor going to C, which is the Roman numeral for 100. Okay, now we've got this tray. We're pretty much done with it because we're going to look at our saliva in here. I'm going to put this tray, which has some sulfuric acid in it, into this pan, and it's just nicely fizzing up just to be a buffer and counteract all that sulfuric acid so nobody gets hurt. And we're going to take this saliva sample, and I hope you don't, whoever did this doesn't have to spit again.
We have more cups.
Okay.
I can spit again.
Bronthymol blue. I'm going to start off with the bronthymol blue because that's perfect. It has the perfect number in it. And I'm dropping it in there. And that's going to work just fine. I'm putting it down on a white surface. It helps me to see it better. And I've got my bronthymol blue card. And I'm looking at it now. Let's see. Now, it's a little bit concentrated here on the left. So I'm just swirling it until it kind of gets all nice and mixed up. And I'm thinking that this may be a 6.6. What do you guys think?
I think 6.8, I think.
6.8?
I saw 6.8.
Yeah.
I don't see that much blue in it.
This one here.
This one.
Oh.
Yeah.
I still think it's a... Look here.
A little darker than that.
A little darker than that.
I don't see quite as much blue like you said.
So you can call it a 6.5.
Yeah.
But just split the difference.
Split the difference.
Yeah.
Call it a 6.5. That's fine. These are important because why? Magic word here. They're logarithms.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. These are very important. It's much more than just one digit difference. Okay. Logarithm. So 6.5. It's okay to go between here.
Oh, yeah.
Are we done?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you say
Thank
my numbers?
Okay.
Let me
Where do
make
we
sure
do
I
the
didn't-
salt correction?
It's lunch. and
You
then
don't.
she
You
has
don't.
that one.
I don't care
Okay.
who said to do it.
No, don't.
You don't.
Good.
Not
Okay.
on the level that you are learning now.
Okay.
I asked Dr. Badeau about that, and he said, oh, I just meant for people to do that the first time to see which direction it was moving in. You aren't supposed to use that calculation to bring the numbers back towards perfect. You don't really need to know what direction their numbers are moving in. If they're going to do what you tell them to do, they will move in the right direction if they respond, if they do what you say.
Okay.
And you aren't at a level at this point, neither am I, to do that. I had somebody, and she was a Trinity student who took our class. She came to me and she said, I did the salt correction all along with my daughter, and she's got diabetes now.
Oh, wow.
I said, go back and tell Trinity that and tell them to stop teaching it, because I've already told them that when she had taken the old courses.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really Trinity's
It's
fault.
not the new.
It was, no, because Jason has been very cooperative.
Right.
And we just don't do that. Not to say that we need to stop for lunch.
Okay, it was a secret.
Not anymore.
We don't have secrets here. We're family. We know everything
We
about.
talked pee together, so.
I know that. We know all kinds of things about Beth now.
Yeah, you do.
We had our own little dining room, real quick. We had our own little dining room at Plaza Santa Maria in Mexico for people for the RBTI lunches and people that were staying there at the retreat. And it was probably about 1/4 the size of this room, and there were round tables, and the round tables were kind of close. So you can hear the conversations from table to table. And some of the people got very upset when other people described how wonderful their colonic went.
Thank you very much.
Yes, well, some people.
Yeah,
don't.
you're in the
Some
company
people
of.
can't hear that and eat, but
That's
others of
right.
us.
It doesn't
don't
bother
care.
me a bit. They didn't want to hear about the
You're with
urine.
naturopaths when you talk to at the dinner table, right?
So,
Huh?
do you want to take this down in a form that you
Okay, do you want to?
got, because I've got you, that you like. I have your
Okay,
average.
yes. We
I have
are
your, self-
going to break for
conductivity
lunch,
ratio.
and then after we come back, we're going to have Beth
These are
tell
just
us.
your numbers. I mean, you can
Um,
figure that
None
stuff
to
out.
numbers, my salt.